All right, let's get our Facebook friends in here before it's time to take off. I got the spinning wheels going, and 1 and 2. Give it a second to breathe, and welcome in, welcome in. It is Wednesday night, and it's time for an episode of Mile High Insiders. I am Nick Kendell, and joined by, once again, today, Scott Kennedy. Scott, it's, man, I just saw you, 11 hours ago. How you doing? Anything changed since then?
I know, you have to look outside and wait. It was dark when we started. It's dark now. What time is it? Was it day? Is it night? I don't know. I'm so confused.
That's a constant state.
That's why you wear the hat, isn't it?
Yes, what day? That's honestly it is. I have this one on right here as well, but that's for tomorrow morning. And I have them up top there. I'm up with all my hats going on. But yeah, welcome in, folks. It is Wednesday evening. Luke was feeling a little bit under the weather, so we called in out to the pen and brought in our closer, Scott, and we're here again. So a little Broncos insiders for breakfast for dinner, and gonna hang out with you guys and talk a little bit more head coaching search of the Broncos. Obviously, that's the 24 hours news cycle in the NFL, and more information coming in now. But if you're watching right now, Facebook, YouTube, wherever, make sure you're dropping a like on the way in and subscribing to the show. And we'd really appreciate that. Let's say hello to some people in the chat as they come in here. Frequent commenter on the show here. We got Todd Ostendorf saying, I heard what he is supposed to have said, which directly contradicts which was previously put out. Really, this is probably some tactic to get teams to make a bigger offer. And he's talking about Jim Harbaugh recently having an interview with somebody in Charlotte. I should probably credit who that is. I don't remember who it was off the top of my head, saying that
Queen City News.
Queen
Let's just
City
start
News.
there. Queen City News, which is at first I was like, wait a minute, why is Charlotte again? Because I kind of read the comments first, like, what are people saying about this? And the comments is like, why is this coming out of Charlotte? And I was like, why is this coming out of Charlotte? Oh yeah, Carolina Panthers. Duh.
Yep.
That's why. Because I honestly I never really considered the way the Panthers are playing. I feel like they've got their guy, but if you can get a Harbaugh while you have an interim coach, you kick the tires and see what you think for sure.
And there are always a few shocking positions as well. I saw an article today that made it sound like if the Dolphins failed to make the playoffs after being, what were they, 9-3 or something, they could have a cleaning of the house too. And then Mike McDaniel would be gone. And we know that the Dolphins tried very hard to get Sean Payton last off season as well. I don't think it's completely true that we have Mike McCarthy being safe in Dallas. So we'll see what positions open up. It's a lot of things yet to be determined. Let's say hello to some more people coming in here. Evening from Mike Woodward. Good to see you, Mike. We appreciate you. James Webb coming in. I love your telescope. Saying, wow, only one more game. Comes and goes so fast. Yeah, this is one that I'm ready to turn the page on and get looking forward to the offseason. But definitely comes and goes so fast. And bad Bronco football is better than no football. Stumpy McGrumpy 916 coming in saying, win or lose, I stayed true to the orange and blue. 100%. We appreciate you coming in here and supporting us and enjoying us on the show today. I know we got a couple super chats coming in as well. We got our guy Drake Wally, 999 over on YouTube, saying, what do you guys think about the tight end situation in Denver? Before going on the injured reserve, I thought third round pick, 80th overall, Greg Dulcich was a big bright spot, really filled in that position with flying colors after Fant was dealt off to Seattle. Scott, what do you think about the Broncos tight end spot and Greg Dulcich's play this season?
I think what you brought him in for once he was healthy, which is to be a receiving threat, more of a Shannon Sharp type. You hit. It was a big hit, and it was probably even more so than you expected, or else you would have tried to get him a little higher. The tight end position on the whole, though, that's it. Right now, what can you get from Albert Okwuegbunam? We talked about him that, despite the decent game he had, I can see flashes of why you want him out there, and also saw flashes of why he was not out there. He was struggling going after the ball, but I thought Dulcich is definitely a bright spot. Got to stay healthy. I don't know that he's had injury issues throughout his career at UCLA. You don't make it from a walk-on position to the NFL draft if you're on the sideline too much. That's a promise. Yeah. So hopefully that hamstring stuff is behind him. And if not right now, a good offseason will take care of that for sure. So stay healthy. Drake, appreciate you coming in, my friend. It's good to hear from you.
Yeah, we appreciate you, Drake. I think Drake Dulcich had a good season. we talked about it. He missed pretty much the entire offseason, the rookie OTAs, whatever, dealing with injury, and then wasn't even sure we are going to see him much at all. And he came out and had flashes this season. Now, is he ever going to be Travis Kelce out there or Kyle Pitts type of athlete or anything like that? Vernon Davis? No. But he can be a solid player. He's going to have to work a lot on his blocking this offseason for me to be satisfied in that department. Maybe that probably will never be his game given the type of frame he possesses. But he'd be probably the first one to tell you that. What can you work on this offseason? I got to get better in the weight room and with my blocking. So that's one you want to look for with him this offseason, taking a step there. Don't think he'll ever be a lead block, but if you're running an outside zone or, he can be one of a tandem of tight ends. After that, though, I mean, pretty much all the tight ends I think are going to be free agents at the end of the year. I think you might have one more year of Albert Okwuegbunam under contract if you choose to go that route. But this is a position that the Broncos could look at in the draft, or kind of a cheap veteran free agent like you brought in this last offseason with an Eric Saubert, with an Eric Tomlinson, just to kind of turn over the room. And that's most tight end rooms. I mean, how many difference makers are there actually at the tight end position in the NFL? 5, 7? There's not many. It's kind of like linebacker right now. If you have good, solid, that's enough. Those aren't really the difference makers out there.
I think it's coming back in vogue, though. I do. And part of the reason why, and I've said a zillion times, is the changing of the rules. A joke I used when I was scouting football players, 20 years ago, starting 20 years ago, is how come no tight ends ever come from the South? You got all these players in the South. How come no tight ends ever come out of here? Because if they're big and they're fast, they put them on defense in the South. That's how it works. That said, the game has changed to the point where why would you want to even play defense? I used to be all about defense, Nick. I'd be like, go play cornerback. They need you at corner. You can get a scholarship if you're a corner. Go play defensive end. It pays better than a tight end. Do these things. Now I'm like, it's not as much fun to play defense as it used to be. You're not allowed to hit anybody. You're not allowed to cover. You're going to see more of these freak defensive ends playing tight end as we move forward a cycle or two over the next decade.
And the body types are changing too. I mean, the big slot is more in vogue now. You're getting some of these guys that are detached from the line of scrimmage. They're wide receivers as much as they are tight ends. I think the tight end itself, though, specifically for Denver, I'd be looking for somebody who's a little bit better in the run blocking department. I think that's how you have to try to salvage this offense next season, really lean into the run game. I've said it 100 times, and I'll probably say it 100 more times. One of the reasons I'm big on Jim Harbaugh, everywhere he's gone, they've been able to run the bleeping ball and do it effectively. But I think this is a room that you could look to bring in some talent. I will say I will lose my damn mind on air if the Broncos use a first-round pick on the tight end position. I think Michael Mayer is a fine player. I think Dalton Kincaid at Utah is a fine player. I think Dwayne Washington at Georgia, fine player. Luke Musgraves at Oregon State, fine player. Sam Laporta, fine player. Parham at Purdue, fine player. Are you catching a trend here? It's a deep tight end class. If you use your first-round pick on one, I think you're not playing the draft game very well. We're talking round 3, round 4, round 5. I think you can get a quality player at that position.
And Trey McBride's starting to make some strides with Arizona Cardinals. Where did he get drafted? 3rd round, 4th round?
He was like the 60th pick in the 2nd round.
Okay, so end of the 2nd.
Yep.
So yeah, you're right. You can do those things at that point in time. Unless your name's Brock Bowers right now, you're probably okay. But no, and I'm sorry, but Drake wasn't asking about first round. Casey's coming in. Casey, speak of the devil and he shall appear. We were just talking about you like 3 days ago. Like, where has Casey been? He was our first summertime Broncos superstar, Mile High superstar guest guy, and then he's gone. Where has he been? Welcome back, my friend. It is good to hear from you. But he says billionaires at the Walmart level don't like getting embarrassed like they did this year. They'll pay what they need to flex and do better. And Casey, it's something I've repeated over and over again about, why would you buy this franchise? Because it's a club. It's the billionaire club. And when you go to the club with these other billionaires, you don't want to have the stinky gremlin. You want to have a shiny thing and everybody's looking at you, hey, nice season, patting you on the back and making you feel good. You got all the money in the world. It's now it's about ego and these type of things. So I agree. This This team wasn't bought as an investment. I mean, it's a safe investment. And it's a nice way to park $5 million and turn it into $5 billion and turn it into $10 billion over the next 10 years. But this is, again, it's exclusive. It's an exclusive group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're right. They don't want to be embarrassed. Now, how much can they fix over the course of one coaching cycle? kind of drove me a little crazy, Nick, when I'm hearing these owners aren't doing anything. Where are these owners? They've been in the owners for 2 months. You
Yep.
know, they're here now. You know where they are now. They're in.
Yep.
So you don't have to worry about them being just there trying to, watch their investment appreciate while the product deteriorates. That ain't going to happen.
Now, this is, buying a nice car, right? This is kind of showing off to your friends. Like, I own this right here. And hopefully they will get things on the right track here in Denver and getting that coaching position right. It's not as important as getting the quarterback right, in my opinion, but it's probably the next best one. So let's say hello to some more people coming in here. Diamond Rattler saying, boom, let's go. Good to see you, Diamond. And also, shout out to Casey Nickel. Thank you for coming in and supporting us. Has been a bit, but we appreciate you. We got Excel Dude coming in. Working out there at Microsoft. I like the Excel. I'm more of a Google Sheets kind of guy. Whatever. I've never liked, he comes in and says, I've never liked the Saints as a franchise. I really hope we don't go after Sean Payton. Russ is one of the slowest processors starting at quarterback in the NFL. Really doesn't sound like the right offense. The thing is, with Sean Payton, you'd have to take a blind leap in this because he had one quarterback for so long, but you'd have to assume that he would still maximize what Russell Wilson does well with what his scheme, what he wants to run. But that being said, something I've said on here a few times. I'd be concerned about the quick game, the shotgun, the heavy wide receiver usage, the middle of the field targets that we saw with Drew Brees with Russell Wilson, because that just doesn't seem to be his game overall. But it would meld.
That, and I don't want to hear, this isn't directed at you, Excel Dude, but the revisionist history about Russell Wilson. He's been successful at every stop he's ever had until he got to the Denver Broncos. From high school to NC State to Wisconsin to 10 years in Seattle. Is he completely fallen off a cliff that fast? I don't think so. It's possible. Anything's possible. Mm-hmm. But I don't think he goes from 27 touchdowns to 10 in Seattle. If he was there another year, 12, it was close. It's been bad. Whatever it is, it's been bad. I don't think that happens if he's there another year. So all of the change itself is hard. Getting acclimated to a new city, a new team, a new way of doing everything. That's hard enough. And then we can go through the laundry list of things that went against this team. Y'all were going through it in the chat earlier. So, calling him a slow processor, is that the nice way of saying he's dumb? I don't buy that either. I don't. He's had way too much success in all walks of life that he's not done. And I don't know. I'm just getting a little frustrated with that narrative right now.
I mean, he struggled this season, no doubt. There's a lot of head-scratching decisions, and it was a bad year. I think everybody can agree on that. And I think we'd be shocked if he wasn't back next year. And if I would imagine he'd be better next year just as a result of the infrastructure around him being healthier, just by law of averages. Now, anything can happen. But I think the run game being better next year would help him a lot. Cleaning up the procedural penalties that this team had would help a lot. But he did struggle with some of the full field reads, what's he seeing, some of the decision making. But we'll see how it plays out this year. We got Dominic Martin coming in saying, hey, Denver fam, it's my birthday and I had to catch MHH. MHH for life. Go Broncos. Well, happy birthday to Dominique. Hope you have a good one. Hopefully everybody treats you well. And chat, make sure you guys give a little love to Dominique. Wish him a happy birthday in the chat as well.
So, going back to the change in things, I watched Matt Ryan at Indianapolis this year take too long to get rid of the ball. Mm-hmm. Going through his progressions and stuff. Change is hard. No one's ever accused Matt Ryan of being uber athletic and having to rely on anything other than being smart and accurate.
No.
It happens. So things will, again, I'm not willing, and it's not binary. I'm not willing to put it all on Russell Wilson. This drop-off is not all on Russ from one season to the next. And for those of you that say, oh, the drop-off, what are you talking about? The drop-off started. Seattle fans have been telling us about this for, all year. Yeah. A bad season in Seattle last year would have been wonderful by comparison to what you got this year. So I don't want to hear that either. Miguel Santisteban coming in. He says, evening, fellas. I know you've mentioned a few names for head coach, but who are some candidates out of left field? Who are some crazy ones? On that list you showed me, and we'll flash it again later, of the latest odds from whoarethebestodds.com. There was a name on there I didn't even recognize. About four ways down. About 4 players down. Now I'm stumping you.
Did I send it to you on Twitter?
You send me everything on frickin' Twitter. You're the only reason I have notifications on.
Hell yeah, that's me. I don't know which name you wouldn't recognize on here.
Daryl Bevel. I don't know who that is.
He was the offensive coordinator for Russell Wilson for a number of years
Okay.
underneath Pete Carroll, and I think he has an advisory position with the Cowboys right now. I could be mixing up him and Schottenheimer. The list of offensive coordinators that Russell Wilson had and left is not too short, but he's one up there. Daryl Bevel was a pretty successful offensive coordinator in Seattle for a number of years.
Okay. Yep. I did not know that name, and hopefully we don't get too big of a screen, a mirror effect in the back, because that is the Facebook chat of us in the back. I do pause it though. So the latest odds from Odds Shark is a whole lot closer to what you asked me. Miguel, thank you for the stars, my friend. Always coming in and helping us out like that. Was a lot closer to what I thought it was going to be when you asked me yesterday. When I said Jim Harbaugh, I said, well, that should be about plus 400 in my book. But on this one, instead of plus 1,200, it's plus 200. And then Dan Quinn, and then Daryl Bevel, Sean Payton, D'Amico Ryans. For me, Daryl Bevel is a name, and I am on all of these podcasts in one way or another. We haven't mentioned that name at all, not as a head coach. I would consider that one out of left field.
Yeah. I mean, Daryl Bevel's out of left field, but how about Pete Carroll down there? Peyton Manning plus 10,000.
People have actually asked about that, though, even in jest. I've mentioned Byron Leftwich. I said, give me Byron Leftwich over Eric Bieniemy if we're talking offensive coordinators right now, just because I know that Byron Leftwich has had success with multiple quarterbacks, redoing systems, and calls the plays. I would rather have Byron Leftwich over Bieniemy. You know, one of the guys that you've mentioned on that isn't even on here that I would put above, well, Peyton Manning and Pete Carroll, Steve Wilkes is a possibility. The current Carolina Panthers interim head coach.
Yeah, he'd be a good one. Ben Johnson's not on this list. David Shaw's not on this list. Jared Mayo's not on this list. Bill Callahan's done some really good things with the Cincinnati Bengals, not on that list. So I don't know if I mentioned Gerard Mayo. I did like seeing D'Amico Ryans as the 5th highest odds. I mean, he's my second favorite coach in this cycle. I know, not a first-time head coach, not a defensive coordinator. Get me a dude in there. I think D'Amico Ryan is a dude. I think he's a beloved. His defenses, the way they are able to work their zone coverage. Now, part of it is, you have Nick Bosa, you have Fred Warner. You can't evaluate him without those guys. They go hand in hand with how you're evaluating a coach. But I think he's done a great job with that 49ers team. And I would love him. I don't think he's coming here, though.
Good evening, Ernie. How are you? Saying hello to some folks in the chat. And when we were talking about, Lawrence, were your ears burning when I was talking about people complaining about ownership not being involved enough? Says it did take almost 8,000 empty seats, though. What's up, guys? Much love. Yeah. You want to be heard? That's how. Yeah. That's how. People complain about the price of this and the price of that. Who's to blame? We are. We're to blame for it because we buy all this stuff and we pay for all the tickets. We watch it on TV and inflate those contracts. You want to get something's attention? Ignore them. Give them the silent treatment. That's how you get their attention. So, Lawrence, you're absolutely right. And like I said, the takeaway from, was it the Rams? No, the home game I said there were 20,000 empty seats. I don't even remember the game.
It was probably Arizona.
It was Arizona. There's 20,000 no-shows. Forget the game. That's the takeaway. That's the takeaway from this game. 20,000 no-shows in Broncos country. That was the takeaway. You're absolutely right, Lawrence.
Yeah, gross. Let's say hello to some more people in here. Not gross. Achy Dragon saying Harbaugh to Broncos. Laughing face. Don't laugh. It could happen. Mike S saying, what's up, Broncos country? Good to see you, Mike. We got Malcolm Brown saying hello from Homer, Alaska. Good to see you, Malcolm. Hopefully you're doing well up there in the land of no sun, at least this time of year. Michael Frady coming in saying, hi, y'all. Good to see you, Michael. We appreciate you coming in. He's also saying bonus breakfast. Yeah, breakfast for dinner is always a good time. We got Dave Jackson coming in saying, what's up, guys? Not too much. Mahalo to you with the hang loose. Joey Grubbs saying, how many years until football is over with all these injuries? As long as there is football, there will be injuries. Hopefully the Broncos will not be on the worst end of the bell curve, which they have been. What was that?
Hopefully next year, Nick.
Hopefully.
Hopefully next year you're not bottom 5 for the 6th consecutive year.
Yeah, I mean, this is me, and I'm in the sciences, but this is me like speculating. Like, is it something to do with the altitude out there, like oxygenated muscles? Is it like, are these guys smoking reefer?
If it didn't if the Broncos have been down there for the history of the Denver Broncos have been playing in this altitude for 75 years. How old's the franchise?
Yeah.
And this is a more recent phenomenon, Nick.
Yeah. Really weird. Not sure what's going on there. We got Fallen Sloth coming in. I think he's out there in Cincinnati. Hope you're doing well. Saying, hi, Nick, Scott, and Broncos Country. Glad I get to listen tonight. Well, we're glad you get to join us. We appreciate you. Our guy Phil coming in, rocking the old school helmet there. We love that. Saying, evening, Nick and Deacon Scott. What do you guys think about Shane Steichen, offensive coordinator, Philadelphia Eagles? I like him. He has worked on defense and offense with the Chargers and is doing great with the Eagles. Go Broncos, hashtag MHH for life. Shane Steichen's one of the better offensive wonder kids, I guess, upshot first-time head coach candidates out there. It does sound like the Broncos, much to my dismay, chagrin, I don't know, that they are really looking for people who have had head coaching experience before versus the first-timers, which I get it, but I think that's a limited way to go about your coaching search. But I think he'd be fine. And if he impressed them, they interviewed him and he impressed them and he wanted to come in, that'd be great. Obviously, it wouldn't be a 1-for-1 of what he's doing with Philly, with Jalen Hurts and that offensive line and Dallas Goedert and AJ Brown and Donovan Smith versus what he'd do here. But I mean, he's been a problem solver, and what he's done developing Jalen Hurts has been phenomenal. So I'd be interested for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you get pieces and put it around a quarterback and put him in a position to succeed. That sounds pretty good to me. But yeah, I like Steichen as a candidate. And if you're not calling him for an interview, I'd like to think it would be a Brian Daboll situation that he's already taken another job. The talk about, they're not even interviewing Brian Daboll because he's not coming. Okay. I mean, I don't think you go through that whole process and put 10 people on the list and not call Brian Daboll. And that's how I feel about Steichen. I feel very similarly about those two that I did Daboll last year. I think he's going to be very successful.
Yeah, he's done a good job. I'm also extremely interested in Ben Johnson, I think mentioned, and Bill Callahan. I think Kafka is a first-time head coach. You mentioned Daboll. I think Kafka's out there being the offensive coordinator now for the Giants, and he was really highly thought of in that Kansas City building. So maybe he's one. You get an interview in there, but again, it's the unknown. But I think I'd rather go for a potential unknown than a second-time coach who we know who didn't do very well. That's not the case with Jim Harbaugh and Sean Payton. I'm a little more trepidatious with Reich and Quinn, who seem to be the other two coming in there. I'm not feeling Dan Quinn. Maybe that's just vibes.
I'm fine with that. I just don't like it. They didn't do very well. He's one of the most successful coaches in the history of the franchise. That ought to tell you something. That's more about the Atlanta Falcons. He did well with the Atlanta Falcons. How it finished is a different story. Dan Quinn did well with the Atlanta Falcons overall. Trust me, I've lived 40 years in this city. I know.
And he should get as much credit for hiring Kyle Shanahan as he did for hiring Sarkisian.
Yeah, and I don't know who's hiring whom at that point.
Yeah,
who's bringing whom in. How much control do you have over it? I blame Thomas Dimitrov for a lot of stuff, and the general manager there. Who's making those picks? Again, the general manager. For me, the general manager should have the final say on everything when it comes to or else you're not the general manager. He should be the boss. Forget what we heard Greg Penner say. It's more likely that you have the partnership. Now, I do see that in Atlanta now, so maybe that's the new wave of doing things where you've got a president of football operations that the general manager reports to, and he's side by side on the org chart with the head coach. Okay. More typical situation is a general manager hires a head coach. And I'm not letting my subordinate hire everybody else without my input, say so, and rubber stamp. So again, I'm not just talking, Falcons here. I'm talking Broncos too. And who do we blame for all of this stuff? Who gets the blame for Butch Berry? Who gets the blame for Montreal Washington? You're not gonna get me with Dwayne Stukes on that, because for me that's the general manager.
And pretty interesting. Albert Breer mentioned in his article that if Broncos or Colts bring in a head coach that wants a little bit more player personnel power, that both Chris Ballard and George Payton could be on the hot seat and out of a job. Not many people talking about that. But as we've talked about on here, Payton already kind of has conceded some power. Would be interesting. I think it's a toss-up if he's here after the draft or not. Patriot text coming in, despite what some people have said. Patriot text coming in $5 saying Harbaugh is still in play no matter what is reported. Money talks, BS walks, hashtag MHH for life. We just showed you the odds shark odds there, and he was the odds-on favorite at plus 200 to be the Broncos' next head coach. So the Broncos are going to make a play at him. If he doesn't end up a Denver Bronco head coach, because he turned them down.
Yeah, he's still in play without a doubt.
The favorite,
until a contract extension is signed. His base salary at 7 puts him as the 12th highest paid football coach in college football. I think Michigan has, if not the biggest, the second biggest fan base in college football behind Ohio State. It's Michigan and Ohio State. When you're talking raw money, when it comes to the media and everything, it's Michigan and Ohio State are 1 and 2. The SEC wins the games. They win all the championships of the last 20 years. I'm exaggerating, sort of. But the money is still Michigan and Ohio State. So that they are 12th, there are not 12 teams that can beat Michigan in financial might when it comes to $7 million. They bump them up. There was four coaches going into this year that were at 10 or higher. Do they offer him 10 or higher? They want to keep him. I think they're going to have to, Nick.
Yeah.
And appreciate you, Patriot Text, coming in green with that super. Appreciate the support, my friend.
Yeah, pretty cool. I still don't know why they have the buyout so low. $3.5 million seems minuscule compared to some of those other.
That's how they probably keep the salary lower that way.
Probably. Yep, you're probably right. Kareem coming in, so the dynamic duo. What's up, fellas? Not too much. We got Gary blah blah blah, or Gary blah blah coming in. Added one too many blahs, Mr. Blah. Sorry. Saying, do you guys look for any potential prospects for next year's draft? If you're talking 2023, yes. If you're talking 2024, yes. Yeah, we're all right. I mean, at least for me, starting to do the work on the draft. I've been working on 2023 now for a bit, especially some of the top 40 kind of guys and some of the guys at the bigger school. Haven't watched a lot of non-Power 5 players yet. We'll see some of those guys trickle up, and I'll let some other people do the work first on that one and be like, okay, this guy's worth watching. Okay, then I'll check him out. This person has a 4th round grade on him. I'll put eyes on him then. But definitely putting work on it.
You get to know some of them through osmosis. No, I don't watch as much college football as I used to. So I'm seeing a lot of these guys for the first time at Senior Bowl, at Shrine Bowl. But when I'm watching a game, I used to get asked all the time, when do you start scouting players? I said, when they show up. That's when. If I'm here and I see them and they do something to catch my eye, I'm always watching. So when Nick's watching Iowa play Wisconsin, he's paying attention to every player that's out there and making mental notes of guys. We love the younger guys. They're more fun that way. It's more fun talking about the guys that nobody else is talking about.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we do. So do you already take a look at potential prospects for the next draft? Yeah, you're always watching. How many people are talking about Arch Manning, for goodness sakes? So that's you're always keeping a look. Appreciate the question, Gary.
I might like that Tennessee quarterback just as much coming in here. He was like the number 1 volleyball recruit in the country too. So I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's a freak athlete. Kareem also coming in saying top 3 players returning from injury we should be most excited about in 2023. Biggest difference makers. I think number 1, I'm probably gonna have to go Tim Patrick here for this one, just because his injury was the furthest in the past. So I feel the most confident about him coming back. I don't think his injury was the biggest impact on this team this season, but as far as guys returning that could make an impact, I feel the safest with him coming back and being a difference maker. After that, I probably go Javonte Williams. I'm concerned about his knee, especially being a running back. I mean, he might not be the same at all next season. It's one of the reasons that running back is very much a position I expect the Broncos to look at this offseason. Then after that, I guess I'll go Garrett Bowles, but we'll see if he's here. I mean, that contract is movable, and it could be he could be somebody who's on the move.
I think he'll be here.
I think so too.
I think he'll be here, but again, and I think he's got a chance to be pretty healthy when he comes around. But you hit the big ones there. When you start talking about how about Randy Gregory
or Draymond Jones? I mean, that's it.
And Draymond Jones. Those are guys that were basically. Well, Draymond's a free agent.
If Draymond's back,
Randy Gregory's at least under contract. Russ played beat up this year. How about Russell Wilson? There was a lot of those guys. I start thinking of all those players. You go, Cortland Sutton missed some time, but I mean, the easy answers are Tim Patrick and Javonte Williams, but I would throw Randy Gregory in there. Again, who should you be excited about? But I'd be cautious. Nick was just be cautious about some of these. And, talking about the laundry list of problems, I think Todd hit on it actually. The Skinnedy curse is powerful. It's not nearly as well known as the curse of the Bambino, but it's big. I mean, I've turned Chelsea into a relegation level team after they won everything before I started watching them. The Broncos, it goes on. The list goes on and on and on. I just wasn't destined for sporting happiness. That's why I watch everybody now. Just let's curse them all.
I'm gonna have to outdo you. When did I join Mile High Huddle and start covering this team? 2016. That's the year that the Broncos started their
You're not
losing
going to
streak.
outdo me. I was a
For the Broncos.
Cleveland-born, Atlanta-raised sports fan. For God's sakes, man.
You are cursed in that regard, but for the Broncos, started covering this team at the end of the 2016 season, which would have been the first season that they missed the playoffs after the Super Bowl. They haven't made the playoffs since. I'm also 0-8 in games I've been to live in the Broncos. That's not a good track record. Maybe both of us together amplified have really messed this up. But Andrew Lampy not messing it up, saying coffee at night. Hope everyone had a great holidays. Well, hopefully it's decaf. I'm 30 plus now. So what little caffeine this late at night is going to make my tum hurt. Not about that. I need to get my 8 hours.
Yeah, the chocolate's about as crazy as I go, but chocolate compared to 24 ounces of coffee doesn't really count as caffeine. Then it's the sugar at that point. So
yeah.
Andrew, appreciate you coming with the stars. I love that profile pic, dude. The big smiles always make me smile. So thank you for the stars, my friend.
Yeah, appreciate you. We got our guy Michael coming in saying good evening. Nick and Scott on Mile High Insiders. Go Broncos. Good to see you. We also got Kevin G coming in saying, hey guys, do you think the pickup of quarterback Guarantano was kind of a move to lure Harbaugh? I mean, he does have almost the exact same characteristics as Kaepernick. No, Kaepernick was a better quarterback than Guarantano.
Jarek Guarantano.
Tennessee.
No, you're not adding a practice squad guy to entice your $100 million coach. No. It's going to take more than that. It's going to take talk of your $250 million quarterback and your first round picks. Those are going to be the questions that come up. Not Jared on that one.
Yeah. 100%. Mo Bowdry coming in saying good evening. How you doing, Mo? Smooth
good
guy.
To see you, Mo.
We appreciate you coming in saying good evening, gentlemen. Always enjoy you coming in and hanging out with us. We also got everybody saying happy birthday. Well, it's really nice of you guys catching up to the chat there on that one. So let's get into this a little bit, Scott. We talked about it already, but this Jim Harbaugh information, I guess first Gary Palmer, of course, 1999 GLP saying shout out to the best team on MHH. Thank you so much, Gary. We appreciate that. Saying Nick and Scott rock, love to Broncos country. Well, love the GLP. We appreciate you as well. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a great holiday. We always appreciate you coming in and supporting us, and just even if you don't support us, dropping in and saying hi. You always make us smile just to hear from you.
Appreciate you, Gary.
But the matter of business here, we talk about Jim Harbaugh sends a discouraging message to the Broncos as rumors fly. We talked about it earlier. Queen City reporter out there in Charlotte with the report that Jim Harbaugh said he was more likely going to return back to Michigan. That's not a resounding. If anything, if it's not a resounding, I will be back at Michigan, book it, then it's hedging the other way. So I think the fact
even
that
then I'm still like,
yeah,
put pen to paper.
Yeah, 100%. So I don't think it is that discouraging. The words themselves on paper are discouraging, and I think it's something that you have to say considering the transfer portal, the recruiting class, because if it does fall to bleep and you say you're gone, that's going to impact your future ability. It's going to impact your coaches. And we saw that last year. It sounded like he was very close to going to Minnesota, and then rug got pulled out from under him with Kevin O'Connell going there instead. So it sounds like, to me, that's just, the thing that you have to say in that situation while you're under contract there, especially with, again, transfer portal and recruiting class. But it was not a ringing endorsement that I will be back at Michigan next year.
No, and typically they say stuff like, I'm not really thinking about that right now. That's why I have an agent.
Yep.
My focus is on this recruiting class and doing what's best for the Michigan Wolverines. That's typically what you hear. And I don't know. I feel like I'm a little skeptical about the quote itself. I mean, I love local media, maybe, but again, coming out of Charlotte, did you hear that 100% correctly? Do you have audio of it? And it was coming from a TV reporter, I think, that was first talking about it, or he was reporting it for someone else, but it's not even the Charlotte Observer. It was Queen City News. It was the whole thing was a little bit odd. His agent probably backtracked on that one real quick. Hey, don't say that. don't tell him where you're leaning. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Unless we feel like the NFL guys are cooling off a little bit. Then we might need to get them, or getting a little too confident. Let me change that. If they're cooling off, then you want to try and stir it up on the NFL side. If they're getting a little too confident that you're definitely coming out, then let's up the ante a little bit and say, no, I'm going back to Michigan. Like I said, it's going to take 8 figures, I think, for him to head back to Michigan. He's going to get a pretty good raise out of it. And should he be paid as one of the top 5 coaches in college football, which would put him in 8 figures? Yeah, he should. You're the head coach at the University of Michigan. You are 2-0 in your last 2 years against Ohio State, who has owned you for 20 years. Interesting. Michigan still has the lead in that series. That's how big of a lead they used to have.
Yeah.
And you're playing in the top 4 game, and some breaks go this way or that way. You could have won that one. So you are a premier program, money out the yin yang, and you should be paid like a premier coach.
Yeah, and recruiting with some level of academic restrictions that are still in place in the Big Ten as well. That makes it a little bit harder for them, and also the geography of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit harder to get some talent up there to Michigan compared to Texas, right in your backyard. You throw a football and you hit 2 guys that could probably play Division I football out there, or like in
there's
Florida
over
as well.
400 D1 signees in the state of Texas, and I think there was maybe 40 to 50 in Michigan. So you're having to recruit out of state, which is it's tougher. It is.
Yep.
Michigan is a national brand, but it is tougher.
Yep.
That Northwest 100%. Ohio and Cleveland area is a very good area for Ohio, which is almost Michigan. I mean, you're as close to Ann Arbor as you are to Columbus at that point. It's about 2 hours either way. And that helps, but it's still Ohio.
Yep. Absolutely. And Ohio State is a bigger brand, more success, which not shocking considering how they've been the last 20 years. Jeremy Sean at Evening Nick and Scott in Broncos Country. Good to see you. Jeremy also comes in and says Quinn and Reich feel like bad consolation prizes compared to those top 2. I feel like Scott's going to get irritated at me at some point during this coaching search, because I'm not in on Quinn. I feel like
that's fine. I just don't want what he accomplished with the Atlanta Falcons to be denigrated.
Yeah. How much do you put on?
You can say these are the reasons why I don't want him. I get all that.
Yeah.
But his overall stay in Atlanta was a success. That's my point. Again, you're talking about the 28th worst franchise in the history of this league, who went 40 years before they had back-to-back winning seasons. And he took them to the playoffs most of the time he was there, into a Super Bowl. That's the golden era. 2000, about 2008 to 2016 was the golden age of Atlanta Falcons football. This is more like it.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess my biggest things with Quinn, and you are very much on the Thomas Dimitroff holds most of the fault here, which I don't blame you for that at all. But I like to think of it as, if you bring in a defensive minded head coach, then they need to add, if we're playing Madden here, it's like a bonus for +10 on the overall ability on every single player on that side of the ball. And didn't really feel that with Quinn. Now, you were down a lot of players, and you'd know better than I would because you watched this Falcons team much more than me, and they were definitely limited in talent, but it never really felt like he was adding that bonus to that defense like we saw with Vic Fangio here, like you see with Kyle Shanahan in the 49ers, like you see with Bill Belichick with the New England Patriots. And that's something that you want to have them probably adding to that side of the ball. It felt more like it was Dan Quinn was rallying the guys, but when that team was at their best, it was Kyle Shanahan and Matt Ryan being the dudes.
Well, and that's where Thomas Dimitroff put all of his resources.
Yep.
Like I said, he shows up in 2011, gives up 50 points. This is all you need to know about Dan Quinn and the defense. His general manager watched his team give up 50 points in a playoff game at home, and his response was to trade 5 picks for a wide receiver. That tells you all you need to know about the Falcons and defense under Thomas Dimitroff.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely. However, they did give up 50 points under Dan Quinn's defense, which led to that begin with. But you're right. It's always complicated.
The answer? Why?
Yeah. We got to score more. We got to get to 52.
We need more explosive plays on offense.
Julio's damn good, though. David Knucklerath.
God, you guys are killing me with this stuff. Quinn, his defense late in the season fades bad. Look at that 16 team. Okay. Look at that Super Bowl team. They were like mid-20s until the last 6 games of the season when they went on a playoff run.
Yeah.
And it was the defense that started playing lights out for just an ever so brief moment for about 5 games and 3 quarters. So it's again, there's all kinds of reasons. And if Quinn becomes more serious, we'll talk more about Quinn in his time with the Falcons. But I understand why people wouldn't want Dan Quinn. That's fine. I get it. Mike Smith is the all-time winningest Falcons coach. Mike Smith. He former defensive coordinator of Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm not even sure where they got
I think
him.
you're right. Underneath Bill Callahan oh God, what's his name? Never mind, doesn't matter. But I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and he has a winning percentage over 600. Like he's the only coach with a plus 500 winning percentage.
Yep.
Dan Quinn was close. It's close. He's like 49 and 46. Man, that's like 750 for a real franchise.
Yeah. Yeah. He, relative to Atlanta's success, he was successful. David McElrath coming in here saying, "Good evening, Broncos country, Nick and Scott. Good to see you, David. We appreciate you." We also got our guy Phil coming back in saying, "We got a defensive coach. Give me an offensive guy, especially a run-oriented guy." I mean, guy that I'd liked a while ago was a former run game coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers by the name of Mike McDaniel. Maybe he'll become available. There's your run-oriented guy. He's done a pretty damn good job with that team, even though they're fading here. I think it's more of Tua being a little bit limited than it is Mike McDaniel, in my opinion. But wouldn't be against that. I just give me a good coach in here. Would you turn down Mike Tomlin? Would you turn down John Harbaugh? Would you turn down the likes of Mike Vrabel? I don't know if I already said that one. Those are all, defense, special teams guys, great coaches, and able to pick good coaches out as well to surround themselves with. So ideally, it's probably an offensive guy, but it doesn't have to be, in my opinion.
Yeah, and arguably the greatest of all time was a defensive guy.
Yep.
So when we start talking Bill Belichick, going over to Twitch here, why not Bruce Arians? If I was one season away, but the thing is it's hard. Bruce Arians would be a stopgap. It'd be like having Teddy Bridgewater. It's hard to rally around a guy that's a short timer. He's not going to be there for the long haul. And when you see that the coach is checked out, the players check out. You know what? I got a contract. I'll just wait till you're gone. It just kind of works that way. So he'd be a mercenary that wouldn't last very long. He retired on a really good team. What makes you think he's willing to take on a project the scale of the Denver Broncos right now, other than a bunch of money that he probably doesn't need? So that's why that for me, Robot of Doom, that's why not Bruce Arians, because he's not interested in being back in the NFL. If he is, call the man.
He walked away from football because of health issues, correct? Like there was some sort of thing that came up. It was pretty close to the beginning of the season.
How he's
75?
He's old. And he's got to be close to 70.
I think he's 74, 75. So,
there's your answer, dude. Not to be ageist, but the guy's retired for health reasons. He's 74 years old. No.
Yeah. I think his style of offense would be great. That Earhart Perkins style would be good for Russell Wilson. Again, just talking purely schematically, but I just don't think he's coming back to the league. And I love Bruce Arians. He's one of my favorite coaches in the league.
Mm-hmm. I do too. Great personality. I love him too. I love Andy Reid.
Yep.
Very similar. If Andy were to retire and be out of it for 3 or 4 years, because he's like, hey, the grind's got to me. I don't want to do this anymore. Do you call him up in 2020, 2030? No, it's time. Let's find somebody new. There's got to be somebody out there that's going to be the next decent player. Garth is quickly becoming our go-to guy coming in green. He says, when the Deacon brings up compensation the Bucs gave for Gruden, I break into a cold sweat thinking of what Payton may require. Harbaugh, please, Walton Penner. Yeah, it was 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and maybe another pick plus $8 million. I've said, how about that 30th pick and $80 million to the Saints? Does that get it done? Maybe. Doesn't always have to be draft compensation.
Yeah.
So $80 million, because you're only allowed, I don't know how much cash you're actually allowed to take out of the team. when you're an owner. They kind of frown on that in soccer. What do you mean they're paying themselves? They should be pouring every cent and some of their own money into making this team better. $80 million in cash, that might get the attention of the Saints owner group.
Yeah, certainly. It's the draft picks, right? And 2024 is off limits, especially with how bad this season went with the quarterback at the top look like next year. And with how Russell Wilson's contract set up, you need that 2024 first as a break in case of emergency selection. Todd coming in here saying, Nick and Scott, how many offensive linemen do you think the Broncos can realistically get as starters in the 2023 draft? If the question you're asking is for the 2023 season, I think it's possible to have 2 out there. Now, that being said, I don't think that's a great strategy. The offensive line would probably be just as bad next year, if not worse, if you did that, especially considering where your picks are at. But I think you could probably get 2, and that would be realistic. Long term, I mean, you could have 4 or 5 in the draft. One of them could be an undrafted free agent that you hit on, especially on the interior. But probably 2 is what you'd be looking for. And I'm looking for them to draft 2 offensive linemen in this draft. We'll see what they do, though.
Yeah, I've said 3 of each, 6 in one way, shape, or form. Let me think about that one. And do I want 2 starters from 2 rookie starters? Probably not. Can I get a major upgrade? Salute to major upgrade. With 1 starter as a rookie? Yes, I can. But I would like to think, I think Bowles is in. I think Miners is in. A rookie and 2 free agents to polish off 3 new starting linemen. That would be how I'd go with that one, Todd. John Blue coming, he says, what about Brian Flores as we talk about coaches? I think his lawsuit against the NFL, and that includes the Denver Broncos, probably puts him kind of off limits right now for the Denver Broncos. So whatever else you may decide or not about his qualifications or all the stuff we're talking about Dan Quinn about, yay or nay, the success here or there, I think that just ends the conversation right there, John.
Yeah, 100%. And we got Pop Zookies coming in saying 400 plus people watching. Please hit the, then he spells out like here. I'm not going to flash all those, but yeah, hit the like in if you guys are enjoying the show, hanging out with us today. We appreciate you all coming in and hanging out with us. We got Frank coming in saying, how about Mike Munchak if we can't get Payton or Harbaugh? I feel like there's a list of coaches out there that feel very much like if you're talking about the head coach, they feel very much like the Texans hiring Lovie Smith this year. Bring out your dead man walking, whatever it is. This is a sacrificial lamb that's hopefully going to get us through one season competent wise. But after that,
Saturday is going to get a nice pay for a quarter, 6 weeks worth of work for doing that very thing.
It's good work if you can find it. I am available for that if anybody is asking. I'd be happy to go out there and wave my arms around and try to figure out which buttons which on the sideline. We're going to be running a lot of quarterback power in the red zone especially. But I think that I would love Mike Munchak back in Denver. I think he still lives there. I think he's still getting paid by Denver as well. When you talk about these head coaches they have their own guys coming in. I've seen like staffs that people have put together. Let's get this guy, and this guy. There's no connection between any of them. I guess it could happen, but typically you want to see who's worked with who, where they've worked with, what their connections are. Then you can kind of start to figure out some of those staffs.
Xavier asks, I missed the overall story of the pod. Quick summary. The beginning with, there was a report out of Charlotte who Jim Harbaugh had just met with the Carolina Panthers owner, that he told a news source in Charlotte, Queen City News, that you never know what's going to happen. All things are on the table, but right now I think I'm probably headed back to Michigan. And I think I said that yesterday, when we were talking about odds of what are the odds that you get Jim Harbaugh? I'm like, well, to me, it's at best 50-50 with Michigan, that he leaves Michigan at all. Now you're in competition with several teams, including the Panthers, including the Colts, so at best 50-50. Then again, that's 1 in 4. But that was that one. There was another question in here that I saw. Oh, the silent one comes in, and we love you, silent one. So sorry, I'm going to call you out on this one a little bit. It says Sean Payton needs a Hall of Fame quarterback to be competitive. Jim Harbaugh doesn't. Says who? Prove it. He went 4-0 with Teddy Bridgewater. He had Jameis Winston playing some of the best games of his life before he got hurt under that system. Just because he only really had Drew Brees for full seasons doesn't necessarily mean that that's all he can work with. I don't agree with that. So do we know how he can compete for a long time? And you know what? If he gets a high round draft pick, so be it. And Russell Wilson was on his way to the Hall of Fame when he arrived in Denver. So all of those things, Jim Harbaugh, Sean Payton. Sean Payton's a pretty good coach. I'm not going to start, pissing on his resume either.
Yeah, my big thing with Peyton is the exact scheme fit with Russell Wilson. Now that is a 1-year problem if it's that bad of an issue, that you move on from that. The other one thing with Sean Payton that is odd, and I don't have any accusations here or anything like that. Well, I guess the whole Bounty Gate thing was under his watch. That is a accusation of like problems in the Saints. But my number one is that the Saints kept putting everything on the credit card. And when bills started becoming due and things started to seem like they were regressing there, he's like, I'm going to step away for a little bit. You guys can handle the debt on the back end. We were on borrowed time with the contracts, these void years, et cetera, et cetera. Now I'm going to walk away. I think that's a little bit of a concern. But that's kind of, not to bring it full circle here, but that's kind of the scare when you bring in a head coach to be your main player personnel guy, right? They're about the here and now. Your general manager, your front office needs to be thinking about the health of the roster the next 3 to 5 years. And they were chasing it like they were in the here and now. And I don't fault them because you have that window with Drew Brees, but this is what you get as the fallout from that.
And that was one of the first conversations you and I had about, drafting. It's the general manager. He's not thinking about next year. He's not necessarily thinking about scheme, especially in the first round. The higher you go up in the draft, the less you're concerned about scheme. You're thinking about, okay, I want somebody, I want to put his name up in the rafters when he leaves this franchise, and he could probably play for 4 coaches. Unless you're getting that quarterback, and then those guys kind of go hand in hand for a long time. So it I agree. I mean, there is no right answer to who you're going to get, and whoever you don't wasn't good enough anyway. That's what I thought. Or whoever turns us down, we didn't want that guy, and there's going to be a lot of that goes on. That's just part of being a fan. I get it.
Yep. 100%. It's same with recruiting, right? Validate me by picking my school. Tell us that we're the best by picking us. That's why I'm still very sad. I see Mike Essen here. How dare you take Caden Proctor from us in Iowa? I'm still sad. But he'll be great, I'm sure. We got Phil McCummon back in saying, here is a left thought. Bobby Slowick.
One out of left field.
Okay. I don't even know who Bobby Slowick is off the top of my head.
Yeah, me neither. I was hoping you would.
No idea. I'm going to type
it
in
out
right
of
now.
left field, Phil.
Bobby Slowick.
I'll talk long enough to let him talk. And there's some talk in here about Todd Moyer comes in. There's some talk about Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore is the offensive coordinator who was getting some sniffs at head coach last year with the Dallas Cowboys. He stayed. I don't know if the right offer came or if one came or not. Dan Quinn was getting looked at last year for some head coaching offers, and he shut a couple down. Turned down Jacksonville before they even asked. No, thank you. Don't want to interview. Did interview with the Broncos, I believe. But then, before they, either way, before an official offer became public, he shut it down. He says, I'm happy with Dallas. I'm not going through this anymore.
Yeah. We'll see what happens with Kellen Moore. I think he is another one who I think would be a horrible scheme fit with Russell Wilson. They put so much perfect, hard reads on Dak Prescott, full field reads, a lot of sticks. And I just don't see Russell Wilson's ability right now to be accurate and process that well in the quick game, just because he hasn't done that in his career to date. And it's been an issue so far this season. So I don't think he's a great fit. As far as the Slowick comment here, pass game coordinator for the 49ers this season. First year as a pass game coordinator out there in San Francisco.
So he took Mike McDaniel's.
Well, Mike McDaniel was the run game coordinator.
Mike McDaniel's jobs.
Yeah, it's
along the way.
Yep. So he's probably a year or two away from being in that conversation for the head coach. But hey, one to file away. No doubt. There's always those young up and comers that you want to pay attention to, no doubt. But to start to put a bow on this as we wrap it on up here, talking about the head coaching position, obviously We had Harbaugh pretty much say that, oh yeah, I'm probably going to be back at Michigan next year on the Queen City Reporter, and really not a ringing endorsement for that. I think the Broncos are still very much in on him. If he doesn't end up in Denver, it is because he rebuffed them and wanted to go with a different opportunity and said, Denver's offer, the power, the roster situation wasn't enticing enough for him to come in here. It does seem like he's the most likely one, in my opinion, from what I've heard. I know that the national media keeps saying Sean Payton as well. I keep hearing conflicting things on Sean Payton to Denver, where I'm not hearing that on Jim Harbaugh. But we'll see how it plays out. And I'm guessing that a week from now, we might have a lot of lines in the water.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
And like I said, it may not come down to money as far as, you're going to spend $30 million on a guy. And I've said this before. I don't want to have to double somebody's salary for them to come, because then they didn't want to come to begin with. If you're only coming because of the money, then your heart's not in it and you're not the right person for the job. But it is nice when money is no object. And it is no object with this group. I don't have to worry about, if the Cowboys offer him this, can I match it? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can match any offer and go after any offer. And that's a good place to be in. And again, we can go through a zillion reasons why this is still a great job to have. You know them. Don't listen to some of the people out there that are talking about, why would they want to come to Denver? Because it's a head coaching job in the NFL with one of the most historic franchises in the biggest league in the United States. That's why. That's all you need to know.
Money and power. That's what makes make the world go around. And you got an opportunity to do that there in the NFL with Denver. And it sounds like they're going to give him a big opportunity there. We'll see what happens. I think right now in my gut, Broncos will go after Harbaugh. If they don't get Harbaugh, it's Quinn. That being said, I think if they get Harbaugh in here, Payton might be out. If they bring in Quinn, it might be, okay, this is the guy that you wanted all along, Mr. George Payton. If it fails, you're out. The coach is out. The quarterback's out. So will be really interesting to see how it all plays out. And we'll be back live again tomorrow. We're going to talk a little bit of Jordan Reed at ESPN. He had a mock draft come out, his first mock draft of the season, with the Broncos taking a player that I think a lot of people would be excited about there with the pick. Obviously, the Broncos pick is not set in stone, but we're getting there. And also, if you guys are curious and dipping your toes in the draft, over on Scott's channel this morning, we did a top 10 mock draft. So you can start to familiarize yourself with some of the names. We only did 10 picks and we talked for like an hour and 10 minutes. So there's a lot to talk about.
It's the first time talking about these guys. We had lots to talk about.
100%. And it'll always be fun to come back and look at the names that were there and what they look like now compared to April, as things shift, things evolve, and we get more information on these players. So appreciate everyone coming in. Shout out to Scott for jumping in last minute when Luke texted us saying he wasn't feeling super good. Double duty today. I can speak from firsthand experience. Sometimes that's a long day. So we appreciate you doing that. Shout out to everybody also joining us today on the chat. Everybody supporting us with the supers, the likes. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you do that. And also follow us on Twitter. Scott is at Scout Kennedy. I'm at Nick Kendell MHH. Also, make sure you're following us at MHI_pod. And since we'll be live tomorrow, at BFB_pod as well over on Broncos for Breakfast. Follow us at Mile High Huddle. And if you're on Facebook, make sure you're on our Facebook pages, facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. And as the ticker says underneath there, please subscribe, like, and share. One last shout out there to Luke. Hopefully you are having feeling better, probably watching this show right now. Hi, Luke, in the background. And also shout out to Dominique for your birthday. I think it was Dominique's birthday as well. So come back around and happy birthday, Dominique. Hope you have a good one and hope the show today was up to your birthday standards.
I see some talk of Bill Cowher in here. Bill Cowher hasn't coached the NFL in almost 20 years.
Yeah, that one's...
Guys, be serious here. You were talking about first-time head coaches. Jerry Rossberg. Jerry Rossberg's 68 years old. We're talking about not wanting guys who are in their 30s that are first-time head coaches on the ascendancy, let alone a guy learning on the job at 68 years old. So there's a lot of it. It's becoming, we used to call recruiting and stuff and the coaching fire. This is the silly season for sure. This is the silly season. We're going to have fun with it. We appreciate that y'all are here along the ride with us.
Yeah, and we'll find out more soon. Every day, closer to the Broncos get a new head coach, back to their winning ways. It's got to happen. Appreciate all you guys. Continue to choose kindness and compassion. Go Broncos.